Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Joni Young and I'm really excited to show you how to paint this today. I'm going to be working on an 8x10 double primed and stretched canvas using the following colors here. I've got a full list below the video in the description box. I'm going to use a number 10 flat brush, get it wet, and start applying strips of colors up and down vertically onto the canvas to begin the background. The first color I've got here is blue turquoise. And so just with a little bit of water and this paint, I'm going to go in the middle of the canvas up and down, and then I'll just switch over to the next color. I'm not going to be washing my brush out at all in between switching these colors up. They're all going to just kind of work out of the brush gradually and then fade into the next color. And that brings me to phthalo blue. So that's our next color here. I'm applying it partially where I left off with that blue turquoise, up and down, again, using just a little bit of water here and there when I need to. So a little bit of water means just dipping the tip of my brush only in the water. And I've got bright aqua green turquoise next, just adding a tiny bit there to the very far left side of the canvas. So I'll just clean up these brush strokes a little bit and then go right into my Dioxazine purple. Beautiful rich purple. I love this one for my fantasy landscapes. And I'm going to go up and down, same technique, grab a little bit of water here and there when I need to. And I'm going to cover a little bit more of the far right canvas, or right side of this canvas, before picking up one of my last colors here, the Neon Rose by Holbein. And if you guys are struggling with finding colors that are similar to these and you don't have them, just ask in the comments below and I'll give you some alternatives if you like. There's lots of other pretty colors that you can use out there. I've washed my brush off now, and I'm just going to take the tip of my brush, pull it into some of my titanium white and the bright aqua green turquoise. I'm going to begin pulling on a little bit of an angle and then sweeping down to create some waterfalls, misty looking waterfalls back in the distance there. I want them to be primarily towards the center and mainly in the center of the canvas, but I'm just going to start off to the right side a little bit first. And then I'm going to dry this completely off, and then I'll come in with my next layers. Okay, it's all dry, and I'm able to add a little bit more white and turquoise here and have it stand out a little bit better. And it's really important to have those first layers initially too. That way you can really build up some depth, and creating layers in a painting is really magical. So it's going to give you a really nice 3D effect in your painting. So there's pros and cons to painting wet on wet and wet on dry, but I like to combine a little bit of both of that in my paintings and my tutorials for you. So just going halfway across where I added those waterfalls, I'm taking my brush and I'm adding horizontal lines back and forth, side to side, creating a little bit of ripples and reflection in the water. And then back over to phthalo blue, Dioxazine purple. I'm going to start in the far right corner at the top, creating half circles, little lumps and bumps here just for like a mountain range or some rocks and cliffside. And eventually I'm going to be adding some bushes and foliage there with one of my favorite mop brushes, so stay tuned for that. Notice how I'm leaving, I'm kind of leaving it see-through in some areas so you can see the pretty colors that we have underneath. And over top of the phthalo blue here on the left side, I've just added a little bit of bright aqua green turquoise, and then I'm going to go over and add just a little bit more of the phthalo blue. Wash my brush off right after this, and then I'm going to start adding a little bit of highlights. I'm going to warm up my white in the center. Clean brush, still using that number 10 flat, and I'm pulling into my neon yellow warm. So white, a little bit of water, and neon yellow warm. Up and down in this right through the center. So we've got that warm glowing light that's so inviting and calming, and it goes right through into the water, so it's reflecting and kind of mirroring in the water as well. I'm going to wash my brush out completely after softening that and just blending out a little bit to make it look really fuzzy and faded off into the distance. I'm going to begin adding blue and purple for my roof line, creating a little diagonal slant here and slight scoop for the roof. And we're going to have it sort of off to the side here, and just adding a little dab there, a tiny little line for the chimney. And then I'm going to pull across the other way underneath the roof line for the bottom of the house. And then just add a little bit in between, adding another diagonal line on the other side of the house. I'm going to switch over to one of my little liner brushes here. I'm going to take some white and I'm going to add a little dab and wiggle, quick little wiggle with the tip of my brush for some smoke coming out of that chimney. That always makes it feel so much more cozier and inviting when you add a little smoke coming out of the chimney, as well as some warm light through the windows. So I will be adding that as well. And I'm going to take a little bit of Dioxazine purple only and go right underneath the roof line where it's going to be the darkest from a shadow. And this is going to help build up that depth as well as create some contrast. So it's really going to show off our beautiful warm light inside the windows and just help everything stand out. I'm just adding little dots and dabs on each corner of the house. That kind of gives the feeling of maybe some logs, could be a little log cabin. So you can really change up the exterior of your house with how you apply the paint and your brush strokes. Now with white, neon, warm, yellow, you can also take a little bit of neon orange if you want and use all three colors. Just add a few little dabs and pulls. That's all you have to do. You don't have to try to make a circle, square, or rectangle. It's far away and you just need to create a little suggestion there, so less is more. I'm going to add a little bit of white and phthalo blue together, and I'm going to add some light on the roof because the way the roof is facing towards the center there, the light would be casting on that roof just a little bit, but I don't want to cover up underneath the chimney because the chimney would cast a shadow. So there's going to be a little slant and a line under that chimney. See how I kind of go off to the side diagonally. And the front of the house will be the darkest, and then we're going to also have a few little lines in here just to pull some more detail and a little bit of light coming from the windows. We'll add a few little bushes, and maybe you could add a suggestion of some flowers up there as well if you want. I really want you guys to use your imagination. If you're painting along with me and you think, oh, this would look really cool, I wonder if I should add this, don't hesitate. Just go ahead and add those ideas when they come to you. That's how you grow as an artist, right? You have to jump on those ideas, and don't worry if it doesn't turn out, because you have to make mistakes in order to learn. You have to have it not work in the beginning in order to have it work later on. So you really have to practice, and you have to be okay with accepting, that not every painting, not everything you do is going to be perfect. And I'm just going around and adding some more contrast and shadows with my Dioxazine purple, a little bit of phthalo blue in there as well, outlining the windows and the door. I've got a little window on my door. It's always a nice idea as well. And the next brush I'm going to be using is my 1-inch oval mop brush. I love this one. It's a little bit stiffer than the other ones that I have, but you can use any mop brush that you have. If you don't have a mop brush, go ahead and use a fan brush or any stipple brush or even a filbert brush. Now I've just taken a little bit of blue turquoise and bright aqua green turquoise, anything that's going to show up and be a little bit lighter. You want to tap only and don't pull and sweep if you want something to look like foliage and bushes. Okay, so a little bit more of that turquoise on the very top for some more highlights, where the light would be hitting it. So imagine the light coming from the windows, where it would be casting down and just landing on a little bit of the areas here. And of course the light from the center where we have the waterfalls and probably a sunrise or sunset way back there. And I don't have any water on this brush as well. So that's really important to know when you're wanting to create a stipple effect and have a nice, really clean brush stroke and tapping technique like this. You don't want to have your brush too saturated with water or paint. Otherwise it loses its shape. And now I'm going to take a little bit of my light olive green with my bright aqua green turquoise, and I'm going to start adding some moss covered rocks in here. we're going to start working on the next layer here. So this is the water, and that's why I'm pulling in a sweeping brush stroke technique, because I want to add a little bit of this ivy colored or olive green to the water, just to help create a little bit of mystery and kind of complement all the other pretty colors that we've got going on in the painting. And I really personally love the moss look. Where I live, we quite often go for hikes and we see moss-covered things and rocks and trees all the time. I'm just going to go over and add a little bit more light to the center. You know, as acrylic paint dries, it tends to dry a little bit darker, so it's really normal for that to happen. Don't think you're going crazy. Later on, when you look back at your painting, if it looks a little bit darker than you remember it, it in fact is. So it's quite normal to have to go over and add some more highlights here and there. Now right into my Dioxazine purple. You can add a little bit of phthalo blue if you want, and just start tapping and creating some beautiful trees and foliage here along the right side. And I brought it up right above in the center there above the waterfalls too. I just kind of have a little branch kind of creeping over there, kind of in a cozy, comforting, atmospheric way though, not creepy. And I'm going to add a little bit of that color to the water on either side and the rocks, creating just more shadow. By adding more shadow, it's going to give us more light and highlights. So they really do. You need light for shadow and shadow for light. They complement each other, right? So just adding a little bit more taps here and pulls here. This brush is a really, really great addition to my collection of brushes. And if you're curious, it's a makeup brush. I have quite a few of these. I found over the years that makeup brushes make the best foliage brushes. So the hairs never fall out. They're not expensive. In fact, I got these all on Amazon. I'm using a little bit of neon rose, a little bit of white, and I'm just going to start adding some highlights here and adding this color just to really warm it up and make it look even more magical and cozy. And I'm taking a little bit more of that neon rose without any white, and I'm going to just add this beautiful pop of color. This rich neon rose is one of my favorite colors. These are by the Holbein series, the luminous neon acrylics. And then I'm going to also take a little bit of turquoise, bright aqua green, and just apply a few little taps with the tip of my brush. By doing this, it makes it look like trailing ivy and large leaves, and I really like that. I like a few different types of foliage in my landscapes. I think it's important. It just makes it more interesting. And then apply a little bit of those colors in the water, just long sweeping brush strokes. And then I'm going to take my flat brush and just blend that out and get rid of any little exaggerated curves that I might have there that I'm not particularly happy with. Now back over to my little liner brush and my warm yellow and white. I'm going to just tap very gently here for some light on the bushes outside the windows, and then come in with a few little steps or like an old stone pathway leading down to the water's edge. I'm not going to add too much more detail there because I want it to feel like it's far away and it's just a little bit of light on each of these stairs and steps. Now what I'm going to do next is take a little bit of Dioxazine purple, neon orange, and a little bit of white, mix those up, and I'm going to start adding a little bit of a pathway here. And what I want to do is create a rounded stone path like through the water. There's this beautiful hike that we go on here on the island, and we have to walk over this little pond, or the little creek actually, and there's these big round stones that we have to cross, and I just love it. So I wanted to incorporate that into this painting, and that's what I'll be adding on the bottom left side of this painting. I'm going to mix up a little turquoise. I've got a flat brush here, warm yellow, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more light again. This is probably about the third time going back to build up the light effect of the waterfalls and just that warm sunlight there in the distance. And it really is just this easy. Don't overthink it. Don't think that it has to be intimidating or you have to do some magical brush stroke. It's just what I'm doing here. A little bit of up and down, a little bit of side to side, and don't stare at it too long after you've done it. Just as soon as you do these brush strokes, move on to the next step and wait till later on to judge it. Quite often, we're focusing on one thing and we're not seeing it as a whole while we're painting, so it can look a little bit abstract and a little bit weird during the mid-painting process. So trust me, guys, I've been doing this for a long time, and I always tell my students the same thing. Wait till the next day before you decide to change anything. And I'm not saying that you'll be happier with it the next day. You may be, or you may be like, yep, I really do need to add a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that. It's just a way better idea to wait later on before you decide to change something, because you might regret it. So I've just got a really fine, soft filbert brush here. And without any water, I'm just adding a few more taps of highlights and then a little bit of shadows in between as well. So all those same colors, just emphasizing the highlights and shadows. And I really love these filbert brushes because they're so soft, but they're not as soft as a watercolor brush. So you can still do something with them, but you're left with these really delicate looking bushes and flowers and foliage. So I'm going to start creating these little rounded or oval shapes here, kind of diagonal, leading off towards that other little path there that leads off around the corner and up to that cozy little cottage up on the hill. I'm going to add a highlight inside too, so a little bit of white. You can add any color that you want and just go inside. So you want to leave the outside dark and then the inside lighter so that it looks like a 3D image. So remember, there would be a little bit of light casting down on the tops of these stones. And I think I've got a number 10 flat brush here, but you really can use any brush that you want. If you don't have a little flat brush, go ahead and use a round brush or even a filbert brush. It doesn't matter. Now with the corner of this little flat brush, I'm just tapping and dabbing individual little flowers with that beautiful neon rose again. Now I've got my mini filbert brush here. It's either a 2 or a 0. It might even be a 4, but anyways, just something really small. Okay, and then I'm going to take a little bit of neon orange, yellow, and white and start creating like a rounded square here, or even a rectangle, depending on how large you want your light to be in your lamppost. Then with a clean brush, I'm going to take my Dioxazine purple, the darkest color here on my palette, and I'm going to do a line underneath and a line on the top. I'll outline the edges as well, and I'm going to add like a diagonal, so it kind of goes from the top down in towards each side of the bottom line. And then I'll add a little triangle on the very top. Take a little bit of white with that purple and add a tiny bit of a highlight here on the inside so it stands out just a little bit more. Now if you wanted to use black, you definitely could, but however, I just think that the purple, if I'm using just full-on Dioxazine purple here, it almost looks black, doesn't it? But it's even richer than, I find it richer to use a dark color than just using black. When I use black a lot in paintings, like, a long time ago when I used to use black, I just noticed that it leaves it very flat looking, and I notice a big difference when I use just a really dark color other than black. Or what you can also do is add another color to your black, like a dark green, dark red. I think you guys get what I'm saying, but it does make a difference. So give it a try. If you're one of those people that it is just you go to black all the time for the darkest parts in your painting, try switching it up and adding another color. So I'm just pulling a long, thick line for the pole right down to the bottom of the canvas. And then I'm going to start outlining that top again because it's blending in a little bit too much with the background. It's kind of competing back there, same colors. So I'm just going to make this stand out a little bit better by outlining it again with more Dioxazine purple and filling it in. And then on the bottom, I'm going to add a few little lines that get wider and wider towards the very bottom of the base of the lamppost. I'm going to be taking a little bit of turquoise bright aqua green to accent for a highlight and just another fun color to add to this lamppost. And I'll be adding a line about a quarter of the way down from the bottom of the light of the lamppost. So you'll see here, I'm just going to go down about a quarter of the way and just add a little line across there, and then right into my turquoise aqua green. I always say turquoise aqua green because I do have blue turquoise in my palette as well, so I don't want to confuse you guys. But you really could just use white if you wanted, or any color that you want. So be imaginative and creative, make the painting your own, or follow along using the exact same colors as I am here. But no matter what, I'm just happy that you guys are here and wanting to paint with me, or even just watch. And don't forget to subscribe if you're brand new to my channel and you haven't subscribed already. I have lots of videos here to show you guys and lots of painting tips for you. So I'm going to add a little bit of that turquoise to the side here. And then right after, right into my dioxazine purple, and I'm going to pull a few lines down the center and then one across. So I'll go over these a little bit more. The paint inside is still wet, so it's giving it more of like a smoky plum kind of a color, but I kind of like the way it looks like this. You could just leave it like this, but if you really want to have more contrast and have the lamp itself, the shade really stand out, then you may want to take the time to dry off those warm light colors inside. But I'm liking the way this looks, so I'm going to leave it like this and just start adding a little bit more saturation. So you can see around the top, the bottom, and the sides, I'm adding more of the neon orange and a little bit of white. I really, really like this specific shade of neon orange. It's a cool orange, and it just makes the most beautiful, warm, glowing light. And I decided I was going to leave the painting like this, and then all of a sudden I could just see this. I could see these floating little lanterns in the water, so I decided to add that using the same colors that I used for the lamppost, minus the turquoise bright aqua green. There's enough of that in the water, but I did use the neon orange, neon yellow warm, white, and a little bit of purple. So you'll see that coming up here in just a moment. So just defining the dioxazine purple again, those lines over the lampshade and the top. I'm going to add a few little swirly scrolls here, just very simple ones. I love adding a little bit of ornate ironwork and scrolls wherever I can in a painting. I think it makes it look even more charming. And then that's just with my liner brush, a little bit of dioxazine purple, and then to accent and complement the rest of the lamp post, I added a bit of a highlight here with that aqua green turquoise. Now if you're curious, most of the colors I'm using today are by Liquitex Basics Acrylic, and my neons again are by Holbein. I'll have a link below for those if you're interested and want to check those out. I'm going to take just a little bit more of my turquoise and just clean up the little scrolly designs here on the bottom, more purple, and just even out the lines here and the shapes. And then with a little bit of turquoise on the very tip of my brush, I'm going to add a little highlight right here, so 2 scoops, and then it goes up on either side and right in the middle, and a little dab on the very top. I'll add a little bit more of the turquoise on the bottom and the base. Okay, after washing my brush out, I'm going to take just straight neon orange, no water on my brush at all. I'll always let you guys know when I'm using some water. And I'm just going to pull across the top of the lampshade there, and I'll add a little bit on the bottom as well. And then I'm going to take just straight white and dab, dab, dab in the center to make it really, really bright. Okay, so for the next step, I'll be adding my little paper lanterns here in the water. I'm going to be using my little tiny filbert brush again, And I'm going to use the same colors like I mentioned earlier and that you've been seeing me use for the lamppost or the lampshade. So white, neon orange, and neon yellow warm. Of course, you can use other colors. You can choose any yellow orange that you want for your little lights here and lanterns. And I'm going to just add little dabs for those ones that are far away to create that perspective, and then gradually make the ones closest to us a little bit bigger. Now I've got these ones to start here, and I'm adding a few little lines back and forth just underneath for a reflective glow in the water. And later on I'll be adding the last paper lantern closest to the bottom of the canvas. It's going to be the biggest one, but each one of these I'm going to paint the same way. So I'm going to add a little bit more orange, yellow, and then the brightest part of them I'll be adding a little bit of white to the very center. I'll be outlining them very delicately with my liner brush and a little bit of purple and orange, just to give it a bit of, make it stand out a little bit more, give it a little bit of contrast and make it look more 3D. So you'll see here I'm just taking both of those colors. There's a little bit of white in there. And I'll just kind of do a little oval, flat little oval there on the top, and then scoop around and gently outline. This makes such a big difference instantly, don't you guys think? It just really accents the light going on in these lanterns and gives them such a magical glow. And these are really quick. Like, you can paint these so easily. You can add these to other paintings of yours now that you see how easy these are to do. And you can, it's just such an easy way to bring some whimsy and some fantasy to those landscapes of yours. Oftentimes, if I have paintings that have been sitting around and I no longer am in love with them, I guess you could say, after years, I'll add little lanterns, paper lanterns to them, or lampposts or butterflies. So it's kind of fun going back to your old paintings and changing them up with things that you have learned over the years that you didn't know about then, and you kind of just spruce up those old paintings, and it can be fun. I thought I would just add that and let you guys know that I sometimes do that, and it's definitely okay if you do that as well. I've got a little bit of neon red as well, and I'm going to add a little bit of saturation with neon red, orange, white, and some yellow, and just play up on the temperatures around the lanterns, just adding a little dab here and there, but always remember the brightest part of them is going to be in the very center, and that's where I'll use more of my white. You can definitely tint your white with your brightest yellow as well. That way it'll always have that beautiful, warm, peachy glow to it. I'm going to start adding the final details to this painting. I'm going to add my last highlights and my last shadows. So again, the brightest highlights, more white than anything, inside these lanterns. I'll also be adding my largest lantern pretty soon, and I'm going to paint it the exact same way that I did those other ones, just a little bit larger. I'll also be adding a little bit of light from the lanterns casting on the tops of those round stones. And I'll be outlining my lanterns once more using a little bit more purple. So we're going to have a little bit of a heavier outline, and you'll see how much of a difference that makes. And it really is like the finishing touch to those lanterns. But that's in just a few moments. So I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying this one, and I love hearing from you. So don't be afraid to leave a comment below this video, or a question if you have one. And check out all my other fantasy painting tutorials if you really enjoy ones like this. I've got a full playlist, and it'll keep you busy, especially over those long, dark winter months. So I know I like to spend my time painting and doing creative things, art-wise and craft-wise, to help pass the time during the winter. And I invite you guys to hang out with me and paint along, and we can create together and get through those cold, dark months ahead. Now I'm just going to start gradually adding a little bit of light casting on these stones. Remember, less is more, just a little bit here. We don't want to compete. too much with those lanterns. We want that to be the brightest part of the painting, the lanterns, the lamppost, and of course the light in the distance where the waterfalls are. This is kind of more subdued here around these stones, so I might take a little bit off. And I've got to remember, like, the acrylic paint does dry darker as well, so once it's all dry, it should be the perfect amount of light just hitting those little steps. And I'm going to now take that purple and do that little scoop along the top, where of course that's the opening for our lantern. We've got a little candle, a little flame inside there, or a tea light, and then very carefully go around the outer edges. I'm also going to be adding a little bit more of my light olive green here and there, a little bit to the water, just over those stones, and I'll add just a touch of it down along the base of the lamppost as well. I'm going to add a little bit more of my neon orange here and a little bit of red even, just over the outline. That will just give it a little bit more warmth just by taking those warmer colors and going over part of the Dioxazine purple that we added. And then I'll add just a little shadow underneath and a little reflection of the light in the water. Add a little bit of white right in the center on the top part and down in the middle. Okay, now over to my warm yellow and a little bit of white, water, just a tiny bit of water, and light olive green. I'm going to add just a little bit here and then soften with my finger. I'll do the same thing over here, just a little bit more of that mossy green color. Just ties all those other colors in together so nicely. So remember, it's really important to have a few different temperatures of colors that you're using in a painting. That's how to make a painting come to life and really flow together nicely. So you have cool shadows and warm shadows, and you even have cool highlights and warm highlights. So if you're not sure what cool colors are and warm colors are, it'll say on the bottles and the tubes of the paints that you're buying, and you can also get a color wheel and a color chart, and it'll break it down for you. I'm going to add the finishing touches to this painting with my liner brush and a little dab here and there of my beautiful neon rose to finish this painting off. A few more little flowers here and there. Looks so nice next to the turquoise and the light olive green. This one was so much fun to paint, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to join me today for this one. Hope you have fun painting along. Feel free to share this with your friends and painting groups and families, and post your version up on our Facebook group. I love seeing them. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye!